What's up, YouTube? So in this video, I'm going to be doing my my mock draft for the 2024 NFL Draft. I only ever do one of these. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of mock drafts, but I feel like I probably should do at least one. So yeah, that's why I'm here. So getting into it, I got a couple disclaimers before I start the whole thing. I am recording this Saturday, April 20th, so the Saturday before the draft. But I'm probably going to release this the day of the draft, just because I haven't released my positional rankings yet, like my top 5 quarterbacks and stuff like that. And I feel like my mock draft would kind of reveal a lot of that, so I kind of want all those videos to come out first. So there's that. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it, starting with the Bears. Now, I am going to be picking who I think is the best available at a position of need for that team. So, obviously, the Bears need a quarterback, and Caleb Williams, in my opinion, is the best quarterback available in this draft. Now, moving on to the Commanders. They also desperately need a quarterback. Yeah, I'm not following NFL mock draft databases simulators rankings. I have my own rankings on who I think is better at different positions, and my number 2 quarterback is Michael Penix. The New England Patriots in this case would get Jaden Daniels, because that would be the next best available quarterback. And they also desperately need one. Moving on to the Arizona Cardinals, they're seemingly moving on with Kyler Murray. And at this point, none of the other quarterbacks I think are really worth taking in this particular spot. So I think they would end up with Marvin Harrison. They need a wide receiver, and Marvin Harrison, in my opinion, not only is the best wide receiver, but I think he's the best player in this draft. The number 2 best player is Malik Nabers, and the Chargers need a receiver, so that makes the most sense. This, for the Giants, I believe is where Drake May would go. I do think he is a decent enough quarterback, and I think this is probably where he would end up. The Titans, they could use an offensive tackle. And in my opinion, the best tackle in this class is Olu Fashanu. The Atlanta Falcons, their biggest need is an edge rusher. There's some decent ones in this class. Laiatu Latu is my personal favorite. It's now back to the Bears. And now that they have their quarterback, they've got Caleb Williams. Their next most important position is edge. And Jared Verse, in my opinion, is the number 2 edge rusher in this class. Moving on to the Jets. Could go wide receiver. There's some guys available, but right here they also need a tight end. And Brock Bowers is an amazing prospect. Good blocker, good receiving talent, everything. So the Vikings do need a quarterback, but none of the quarterbacks here I think make sense at 11. Despite what what this website kind of says. That's just kind of my opinion anyway. The Vikings could use some offensive line help, both interior and at tackle. And Joe Alt right now is probably the best available player, period. So I think that makes the most sense. The Broncos also at 12. This isn't really a good spot to be taking like a J.J. McCarthy or a Bo Nix. So the Broncos are going to go edge. And they're going to go with my next available edge rusher in Chris Braswell. Even though it says they think he's a second-round talent, I think he's much better than that. I think he's better than Dallas Turner, personally. The Raiders' biggest need is tackle, so they're going to end up with Troy. I can never remember how to pronounce his last name. I've been calling him Troy Fats, and I'm going to stick with that. I've said it multiple times. I've said it when on his individual video. I said it during the positional ranking and everything like that. But yeah. Moving on to the Saints. They're going to end up going corner because none of these tackles are worth taking at 13. So the first corner is going to come off the board with Terrion Arnold, who is my top corner. And right here, I think we probably have a bit of a run at corner because there's 3 teams in a row that really need one, and you pretty much have your pick. So my number 2 corner, going to the Indianapolis Colts, is Nate Wiggins from Clemson. Following him up to the Seattle Seahawks would be Quinion Mitchell from Toledo. Great Senior Bowl for him as well. Moving on to the Jaguars. At this point, none of the corners really make sense here at 17. Cooper DeJean is kind of close there, but I think Armarius Mims, I just think that offensive tackle is going to run out a little bit quicker than corner. So they're going to end up with Armarius Mims, who is my next best tackle, in my opinion. The Bengals, they could go like a J.C. Latham here. I'm not as big on Talisi Fuaga, I'm going to be honest with you. But no, they're going to go receiver. And despite what all this says, my number 3 receiver is Xavier Leggett. Like, I think he's got so many physical gifts, like, it's impossible not to want to take him. Now here, you could go edge, you could go like a Dallas Turner, but I think they would end up going corner. I think Cooper DeJean is an amazing talent, and I think this makes total sense here. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, they still need some offensive line help, and this, I believe, is where J.C. Latham would go. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins, they would end up going with Jackson Powers Johnson. Graham Barton would also be a good choice. They need a lot of interior offensive line help, especially at center, so I think it makes sense. Moving on to the Eagles. The Eagles really need some corner help. Kool-Aid McKinstry is right there. Makes the most sense. So now that the Vikings are back on the clock, I believe this is where they would go with quarterback. I think they would end up with J.J. McCarthy. I do like him a little bit better than Bo Nix. The Dallas Cowboys. They have quite a few needs. One of them is offensive line. I don't think any of the offensive tackles are really worth taking here, but they could use some interior help as well, because really I think Tyler Smith is probably going to end up being moved to tackle. So I think drafting Graham Barton to play guard, I think, would make a lot of sense. And Graham Barton can play tackle as well, even though I do think he'd be a better guard. Moving on to the Packers, they could use some... honestly, I think they would just end up going best available here. And I think that Jer'Zhan Newton would make a lot of sense. Because I don't think... I mean, the interior offensive line, these are all day 2 guys. Some of these guys are like fringe first-rounders, in my opinion, like Jordan Morgan. I'm not a big fan of Tyler Guyton. Talisi Fuaga, I think this is a little bit too early for him. I don't like Patrick Paul, like really at all. But, you know. So I think the Packers would end up going with Jer'Zhan Newton, who I think is just the best available player at this point. And it is a position of need. Moving on to the Buccaneers, I think this is probably where Dallas Turner would go, who is my best available edge rusher, and edge is their biggest need. The Cardinals, who have drafted Marvin Harrison already, I think this is probably where Chop Robinson would go in this example. The Bills obviously need a lot of wide receiver help. They just got rid of Stephon Diggs. And in my opinion, the best available receiver would be Xavier Worthy. And just giving that kind of a speed threat to someone with the arm of Josh Allen is terrifying. But I think it would make a lot of sense. So the best available player, in my opinion, for the Lions at a position of need is wide receiver Ladd McConkey. Not just a regular white boy receiver. He's got speed, he's got the route running, he's got the hands. Like, he's a really, really good talent. The only real concern is that he has had a bit of an injury history, similar to the next player for the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens tend to go best player available a lot, and in my opinion, the best available player is Peyton Wilson from NC State. There is a lot of injury risk with him, but I think the athleticism, and from a technical aspect, I just think he's a fantastic player. So right here, I think the best available player at a position of need for the 49ers would probably be Jordan Morgan at tackle. And the Chiefs absolutely need wide receiver. So I think this is where Brian Thomas Jr. would end up. So with that, we're going to go here. And just a quick recap, we had Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Drake May, Olu Fashanu, Lietu Latu, Jared Verse, Brock Bowers, Joe Alt, Chris Braswell, Troy Fatts, Terrion Arnold, Nate Wiggins, Quinion Mitchell, Marius Mims, Xavier Leggett, Cooper DeJean, J.C. Latham, Jackson Powers Johnson, Kool-Aid McKinstry, J.J. McCarthy, Graham Barton, Drazon Newton, Dallas Turner, Chop Robinson, Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Peyton Wilson, Jordan Morgan, and Brian Thomas Jr. I think that is something I'm kind of happy with, personally. I think a lot of that makes sense, and just following my own positional rankings and, positions of need for the teams. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, appreciate that like button. If you have any questions or comments in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.